Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, family. Welcome to the Mental House. I am your host, Khadijah. I had to come back and do a video because there was something that went down today that really disturbed me. And as a society, as a community, we have a long way to go to master ourselves because from where I sit and looking at a bird's eye view, sometimes I don't have a lot of faith in mankind and what our intentions are with our own families. And I'm saying this to say because I heard some brothers talking today, and it just made me think how much of a world of trouble that we are really in. Um, People make a big deal out of Donald Trump being president, and in my opinion, he's just a jester. Um, Him being elected president to me says more about this country than it says about him. Anybody that knows anything about mental illness and have seen mental uh, illness up close would have to be a stone fool to know that Donald Trump is not a malignant narcissist. I mean, he acts like a 5-year-old. I mean, he's constantly tweeting. Tell me one other time have you seen a president do act and behave in this manner? You haven't. And you say that that's good? No, it's because the society is crazy. We have been really dummied down by a system that has now considered it beneficial to have the majority of its citizens stupid. And yeah, I'm gonna say it. They've taken civics out of schools, public schools. You got certain education that they're offering to children in the inner city um, aren't being educated at all unless they're being homeschooled. And I find that just a travesty because anybody with common sense know that if you would just pick on the same mantra that maybe an NBA team would pick on, like in other words, at the end of the year, the team that does the worst is the one that gets the first round draft pick. I believe that's how it works to elevate your team. So in other words, if you got a shitty team, and out of 82 games, I think it is that they play plus the playoffs, so you got 82 games that this team is playing, and they just stunk. They didn't make the playoffs, and they only won 14 games all year. Usually, what happens is that team, they go into the lottery. This team's chance of getting the number one pick is probably like um, in the top five, based on this record. Okay, and even before that, I think, which makes a lot of sense to me. The worst team gets a good player, and that way it will be able to elevate the team, and not only that, it'll be able to elevate the NBA as a whole. So you won't have all these teams that are just so uncharacteristically unevenly yoked. It doesn't make good for good competition, nor it just doesn't make good for a good product. So I say the same thing about us. How can you sit here and see the devastation that's going on in the black community? Even for my white counterparts that sit back silently and watch all the madness that transpires and poses in the black community, and they just write it off because as long as it's out of sight and out of mind and they can't see it, then it doesn't really affect them. However, as a great Jane Elliott said, they know exactly well what's going on. They know exactly the devastation and the detrimental and the unfair treatment. They know all of it. But of course, they don't want to say anything because they don't want to lose their power. They don't want to lose their position. So they're fine with watching you suffer so they can have and continue to live a privileged life. So once you know you're dealing with this type of society, it can't sustain itself. I mean, it's gonna, like all the other great empires, it has to. It has to come to an end because the people have gotten too selfish. They have gotten too self-absorbed, have become lovers of themselves, and nothing else matters. I A young man had sent me this um writing, and I think he said he got it from the movie. I believe that's what he said. I'm not particularly sure, so don't hold me totally. Don't hold my feet to the fire. But what he said was, I believe he said he got this certain poem from the movie Church Incorporated, which talks about all the abuse and the madness that goes on in the church. There was a movie uh, written about it, and as soon as I find that poem, I'm going to share it with you. But the reason why I'm coming from this perspective, and the reason why my heart is heavy today, is because I heard some guys talking, and I'm just going to take them at their word because I have no reason not to. And I heard one of them say that if his son was gay, that he would disown him. He wouldn't have anything to do with him. In fact, he would be on his own, and he basically would not have anything to do with this young man ever again. Now, let me give you a little history about this man. His his um his background is he's a minister now, and it's not a matter of if his son is gay. We know that he has written his son out of his life. This is what he have written his son out of his life because his son is gay, and he's very proud of it. Um, this is his own flesh and blood. This is the flesh of his flesh and the blood of his blood. But he is in total denial of his flesh and blood because of the choices that his son has decided to be gay. Whether he thinks he's born that way, no, it doesn't really matter. The fact of the matter is, he said he disowned him. Made me think about that Lee Daniels show where everybody got upset because the little character, when he was small, he said he was gay, and the father threw him in the garbage can. Now, I'm sure a lot of y'all think that's very funny, and a lot of y'all think that you would do the same thing. But that's why we can't get ahead. That's why even as a people, we are sick. We are mentally disturbed. Because anytime we have this kind of impression, and this kind, in my opinion, you have this kind of thinking around your children, you need help. You need help. And I wanted to say that to the brothers today, but I really didn't have I didn't want to put myself in there, and I had some other things on my plate. But to deny your child because they're different, you need to check yourself. And so that's what I would challenge you to say. To say today. That's what I would challenge you at. How do you feel about that if you're a parent, or if you got a sibling or somebody in your family that chooses to do something different than you would do? How would you treat them? If your sibling is gay, do you disown your sibling? And if somebody is picking on or being mean and discriminating, does he have an ally in you? Does he or she have an ally in you? Or are you so selfish to the point that if the person doesn't reflect the way you reflect stuff, that you have nothing to do with it? I'm just curious. Just curious of where you are on that. How about religious choices? Because I know an imam that said the same thing. And in fact, the very closest imam that said something like that was my father. He disowned me and said he would never speak to me again because of a life choice that I made with my body that had absolutely nothing to do with him, and I was a fully grown woman. And the sad part about it is I always thought that I had a good relationship with my father. My father was the first man I fell in love with. It was very healthy. And I thought from 0 to 7 he was my superhero. And I had a false illusion of what a relationship was, because of course I was raised by narcissists. So when he abandoned me emotionally and decided he would never talk to me again, it's still some 30, almost 30 years later, it still feels so surreal given the relationship I thought I had with this individual, who is my father, who is basically responsible for me being on the earth. It was through his loins that I came forth. And that to me is amazing. And I want to know, how deep does your rabbit hole get? What is your cutoff point that you would not ever talk to your child, and disown your child, and or a family member? How about if they marry somebody of an opposite race? Y'all personally know how I feel about that. While I'm not a prejudiced person, I mean, I got some prejudices, I'm sure, but I'm not into interracial marriages at all, because I think that as a society we haven't evolved enough yet, and I think basically the children suffer. I'll never forget the look on my nephew's face when he asked me what a zebra was. And my nephews and nieces are Armenian. And I didn't know what to say to him. And I thought it was just, and all I could say was, why are these children put in this situation? And he was so innocent. And I love my nephews to death, and I love my niece to death, and I'd kill somebody over my family. But the bottom line is, what if my family had the idea that if you married somebody out of your culture, that we would disown you? How does that feel? I know how it feels, but I want to know if anybody out there has experienced it and know how it feels. And think to yourself, does that logically or rationally make sense? That because a person doesn't do what you want them to do, they are no longer human, they are no longer part of you, and that you don't feel that that is even abnormal to even feel that way. Things like that really bother me, because like I said, when I look at Donald Trump, it's not so much that he's president, it's the people that voted him in. And as a nation, it's like, how far do we go with our mental health? How far do we go with disrespecting our own children, having no respect for ourselves, let alone any respect for our children? And I think that there's a scripture, I believe it says, the man that provided, what is it? Romans. I can't think of this, the book right now. But it says the scripture is something in line of, a man that provided not for his family is worse than who doesn't have faith. I just think that when you have that kind of mindset about people and about your children and about choices that people make, you are a very rigid person. And I can't see a relationship with you being successful at all. Being in a relationship with a person like you can't be successful. Having said that, please leave your comments below if you have any. I mean, if there's something that you struggle with, I'd like to know that as well. If there is a deal breaker for you, if it's a deal breaker for you that if your child comes home, your black son comes home with a white girl, let me know. I'm interested. Or the other way around. Okay? No judgment, just acceptance. Acceptance of what your response is. Okay? So, I had to do this video real quick because that really bothered me. And I'm going to go. So if you like what you hear, please, y'all know what to do. Like and subscribe. Share this video. And I'll see you next time. Right here in the dang mental house. Bye-bye.